Have you ever caught yourself thinking that your life feels like a meaningless repetition? Have you ever felt that, despite following advice, studying, working, fulfilling obligations, something is still empty? How many times have you stayed silent to avoid fights, agreed with things you didn't believe in just to be accepted, or even dressed, spoke, and acted in a way that wasn't you, just to avoid displeasing others? Maybe you're tired of pretending everything is fine while your chest screams for freedom. Maybe you're wondering if this is really how life is supposed to be, or if there's something beyond. Many people live this way, trapped in a routine they didn't choose, surrounded by people they barely know, following rules that no one knows where they came from. Because the herd promises comfort, it gives direction, saves the effort of thinking, relieves the weight of responsibility. In the herd, you don't need to decide, just follow. It seems easy, it seems safe. But this comfort comes at a high price. You stop being who you really are. Nietzsche said that most people prefer security to freedom, and to maintain that security, they accept living a small, predictable, suffocated life. The herd teaches you to conform, to be content with little, to be part of a machine without thinking about the real purpose. It wants you to fear dreaming big, questioning, stepping out of line, because those who think differently become a threat. But is it worth paying this price? Living just to please others? Setting aside your desires to be accepted? Spending a lifetime trying to fit into a model that wasn't made for you? The herd offers the illusion of security, but it's as fragile as glass. At the first crisis, everything crumbles, and many realize, too late, that they spent their lives surviving, not living. Maybe now is the time to ask, what do I really want? And most importantly, what am I willing to lose to be myself? Because abandoning the herd is expensive, but living trapped in it costs much more. How many times have you swallowed words to avoid being misunderstood? How many times have you given up on a dream because your family wouldn't understand? Or stopped doing what you loved because others found it strange, excessive, inappropriate? Maybe you're tired of feeling guilty for wanting to live your life. Maybe you don't even realize you carry fears that aren't yours. Inherited fears, passed down from generation to generation, like an invisible chain. The herd is masterful at using guilt to domesticate you. It teaches you to feel wrong for wanting something different. Society, family, friends, they all place the weight of expectations on your shoulders. And if you don't measure up, the fear of disappointing, of not being loved, of being rejected emerges. The cruelest part is that this fear isn't always clear. It disguises itself as common sense, as responsibility, as values. But deep down, it's just fear of being free. Because being free is scary. No one applauds, no one gives you a manual, no one tells you what to do. Nietzsche shows that the morality of the herd is a morality of weakness. It transforms fear into virtue and obedience into pride. It teaches that being good is following rules, even when they suffocate. And without realizing it, you start repeating those voices. I can't do this. My mother won't approve. What if I fail? What will they think of me? Each of these thoughts is a prison. The question is, how long will you live as others want? How long will you let fear decide? Conformity seems comfortable, but it comes at a high cost. The price of not being the owner of your own life. The first step to leave the herd is always the hardest. Suddenly, what seemed to make sense begins to crumble. The place that sheltered you no longer fits. Conversations become empty, relationships superficial. You realize that many of your bonds were just convenience, habit, fear. And when you start questioning, challenging the unspoken rules, the herd reacts. You become the strange one, the ungrateful one, the rebel. The pain is real. It's a deep emptiness. You feel as if you're betraying something greater, your family, your community, your culture. It's the weight of being rejected by the good ones, the right ones, those who follow the script without questioning. The judgmental look hurts more than any word. You understand that many were only by your side because you agreed, said amen, were part of the bubble. When you leave the bubble, the silence screams. It's the silence of exclusion, the silence of those who don't know how to deal with your freedom. Nietzsche knew, the solitude of the free thinker is inevitable. This feeling of non-belonging is the initial price of freedom. It's not easy to break free from a system that shapes, from childhood, the idea that the right thing is to follow what others do. The first rupture hurts. But this pain is the sign that something inside you is being born. You are finally beginning to live. Freedom is not a flowered garden. It's a desert. When you choose authenticity, what awaits you is not a party, applause, or acceptance. It's solitude. Even surrounded by people, you feel the emptiness. Conversations seem shallow, topics weightless. Many live like ghosts, present in body, absent in thought. The worst part is they don't even notice. You try to share your ideas, but you find walls. Gradually, you speak less. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that few want to listen. Nietzsche saw this solitude as part of the process. He knew the price of freedom is high. You lose comfort, approval, applause. But in this desert, something is born. Clarity. Solitude forces you to look inward, to confront truths, fears, desires. It's a process of reconstruction, necessary and transformative. Because only when you stop seeking external validation do you discover who you really are. Solitude is not a punishment, it's a calling. It's the time to find yourself, understand yourself, heal yourself. When everything seems too heavy, remember, it's in this crossing that your strength is being forged. The desert is not the end, it is the path. At first, people try to convince you to return to the right path. They say, it's just a phase, you're confused, don't complicate things. But when they realize you won't give in, something changes. Concern turns to judgment. Advice turns to accusation. Suddenly you become a threat. Not because you did something wrong, but because you decided to live differently. The herd can't stand those who think for themselves. Your freedom exposes their prison. Maybe you've felt this firsthand. The friend who distanced themselves without explanation. The family that started looking at you as a problem. The criticisms disguised as care. You've changed too much. Be careful not to lose yourself. Those ideas are dangerous. What they really mean is, you're reminding me of everything I didn't have the courage to be. The resentment of the herd is a subtle poison. It attacks you, but pretends to protect. Nietzsche said that the morality of the herd is a morality of disguised envy. They don't want you to shine, to stand out, to be free, because that forces them to see their own chains. They don't want anyone to go beyond. They want everyone equal. Equal in mediocrity, in conformism, in lukewarm life. Those who dare to think become targets. First they try to convince. If you don't give up, they reject you. If you continue, they begin to hate you. This hostility is a test, and it hurts. Of course it hurts. But it's also a sign. If the herd starts being bothered by your freedom, it's because you're on the right path. You prove without words that it's possible to live without being a prisoner. The fear that screams is not yours, it's theirs. The question is, will you let their fear stop you? Or will you continue, even if alone, knowing that your freedom is a lighthouse for those still trying to find themselves? There comes a moment when you stop explaining. At first, you try to argue, justify your choices, prove you haven't gone crazy, that your decision to be free isn't a whim. But with time, you realize it's no use. People only hear what they're ready to hear. Most aren't. They want to keep their certainties intact. Silence, then, becomes shelter. You understand that not everything needs to be said, and that not everyone deserves to know what you think. Silence is also strength. To remain silent, you need conviction. It's being at peace with your choices, even without others' approval. Nietzsche said, "Maturity begins when we stop trying to convince." when we understand that we have no obligation to be understood. This is the point where the weight of the herd dissolves. You no longer need to fight to be heard, and because you know that your truth doesn't depend on external approval. The silence of submission is fear. It's the silence of those who swallow everything to avoid conflict. But the silence of strength is calm, almost defiant. It's the silence of those who don't need to prove anything to anyone, of those who know that words are wasted when no one wants to hear. If you've already felt this, you know what I'm talking about. You become more selective with whom you spend your time, with whom you share your essence. You realize that peace is worth more than any applause. Silence is the shield of those who found their own path. And in the end, it speaks louder than any speech. Sometimes, the sweetest words hide the most bitter poison. The herd loves to hide behind beautiful speeches. They speak of love, but carry resentment. They preach kindness, but celebrate when you fail. They say they want your well-being, but behind the smile, they hope you'll return to the right path, their path. This is resentment, rage disguised as virtue. Nietzsche saw resentment as the most dangerous poison of the herd. Because it's not honest criticism, it's a hidden energy that says, I couldn't be free, so you can't either. The resentful person can't stand seeing someone break the chains. They prefer to live chained, but console themselves thinking, at least everyone is in the same cell. When someone escapes, they feel envy, but don't admit it. They prefer to say you're wrong, that you're arrogant, ungrateful, selfish. They prefer to point the finger rather than look at themselves. Maybe you've already felt this. When you decided to change cities, jobs, break friendships, end relationships, seek something new. And the looks came, the bitter comments arrived. Wow, how selfish of you. You think you're better than others. It's going to go wrong, you'll regret it. Sometimes, resentment comes even from those you loved most. And that hurts, because you expected support, but received poison. That's why opening your eyes to resentment is fundamental. Not to take revenge, but to protect yourself. To know when advice is sincere and when it's a trap. When affection is real, and when it's just theatre to keep you trapped. Resentment, deep down, is a form of control. Those who couldn't be free try to keep others captive. And the best response to resentment is simple: to remain free, without explaining yourself, without justifying yourself, without needing approval from those who never had the courage to be what you're trying to be. When you choose to live outside the herd, something challenging happens. The references disappear. The old rules no longer serve, and there's no new manual waiting for you. Suddenly it's dark, without signs, without trails, without a compass. Each step is a risk. And then the greatest challenge arises: creating your own ethics, forging new values, not inherited, not copied, but born from your direct experience. Nietzsche called this transvaluation, transforming the way you look at the world, inverting traditional values, and creating something new from your experience. It's not easy. The herd likes to give everything ready-made. What's right? What's wrong? What's success? What's failure? But when you break with this, you understand that these definitions are fragile. They only serve to maintain control. Outside the herd, there's no more good or bad in the old molds. Only questions. What is good for me? What makes me grow? What connects me with my essence? This is the most frightening part, and also the most beautiful. You stop living by others' standards and begin to experiment with life with your own hands. You discover that certain mistakes are just paths, that certain failures are lessons, that certain sins are cries of freedom. The weight of traditional morality falls, and in its place, something new is born. An ethics built on skin, sweat, heart. An ethics that maybe no one understands, and that's okay. It's a solitary path, but powerful, because when you create your own values, you become unshakable. Criticisms don't bring you down. Pressures don't mold you. You live to be faithful to yourself, not to please invisible audiences. And, in the end, you realize that the only approval that matters is your own. Being free seems like a dream until you actually become free. At first, everything is a cry of victory. You feel you can do anything, that nothing holds you back, that the world is an open field. But with time, what was lightness becomes weight. Because freedom, contrary to what they told you, doesn't come with guarantees. It doesn't promise comfort, doesn't bring security, doesn't give ready-made manuals. It demands that you be the sole responsible for every choice, every mistake, every consequence. And that's scary. You realize you can no longer blame society, family, teachers, the government. Now it's just you and life face to face, without excuses. And the weight of this, sometimes, is crushing. Because at the same time that everything is possible, everything can also go wrong. There's no one else to hold your hand. You are the only guide of your path. And for many, this freedom is unbearable. Nietzsche knew this. He said that few can bear the burden of true freedom, because it doesn't give you applause, nor a guaranteed place, nor approval. On the contrary, it isolates you, challenges you, makes you doubt everything, even yourself. Freedom is an open field, but this field can also be an abyss. But that's where the glory lies, because being free, despite everything, is being truly alive. It's knowing that each step is yours, that each conquest is born from your courage, and that each pain is part of the price you chose to pay. It's living without labels, without approval, without an audience, an act of pure rebellion and pure beauty. You are not understood, but that doesn't matter. You are not applauded, but that doesn't define you. You simply are. And that's enough. There comes a moment when you understand. You can no longer wait for someone to tell you what to do. You look around and realize there are no masters, no manuals, no right path. Those who seem to have answers are as lost as you. They just hide it better. And then something changes. If no one knows the way, then you'll trace your own. Nietzsche called this being Übermensch, the person who creates their own values, who no longer needs the herd's rules to exist. It's not being perfect, nor better than others. It's being faithful to yourself, even when the whole world tries to convince you that you're wrong. It's being your own guide, even if no one understands the map you're drawing. You don't need approval from family, friends, co-workers. You don't need to explain your choices. You don't need to justify yourself. The serenity of those who know what they want is silent. It doesn't shout, doesn't show off, doesn't beg to be noticed. You walk with firm steps, even if the voices around try to divert you. In the end, you realize that the most powerful legacy is not in beautiful words or complex theories. It's in the silent example of those who dared to be free, of those who had the courage to say no to the herd, of those who lived an authentic life, even if it cost them acceptance from others. The world will always try to convince you to return to the herd, but you already know the price is too high. You've already crossed the desert, already endured the silence, already faced the resentment. Now you are your own guide, and this freedom is priceless.